So guys, I do want to talk about the controversial article about Kenny Omega. And recently he did an interview and, I just read the article really briefly a few days ago. I've been very busy, working 16-hour days, making some money to go to Full Gear and some, extra money to go to some of the events in New York that they're going to have. So the thing that I want to say is that, in short, he was interviewed and he said that he does not want to go back to AEW. He does not feel it's the right time to go back to AEW right now, just because he feels that he's going to usurp somebody's spot. And, right now what he's choosing to do is making his comeback in a Japanese promotion. I do not believe it's New Japan, but it is like another Japanese promotion. And there is a lot of criticism about that, and I agree with the criticism. There's some people saying that, it's a very, bitch move, and I do agree it's a bitch move. Because obviously some people are saying that maybe he's very insecure in himself, so he doesn't want to go back to AEW right now, knowing that, the ratings are tanking, knowing that the crowds are down, knowing that it makes him look like a mediocre wrestler. And I really think that, in my opinion, there's a couple of things that I want to say. I think that, it is very disrespectful of him. And Tony Khan has a big issue of this, of very entitled wrestlers. For example, you see MJF do this storyline with Adam Cole and also Roderick Strong. So, maybe what's going to happen with MJF is that he's not going to show up until the pay-per-view. So he was not there for the past 4 or 5 shows, really. So this way, he may be like, okay, well, I don't want to show up because I don't want to look bad by being in a small arena. And there's plenty of other wrestlers that have that as well, where they're like, okay, well, I don't want to be part of AEW because I don't want to be in small arenas. Or you look at the Young Bucks. Yes, one of them is injured, but why not the other one just be on the show? Or like, why not he do like a hybrid tag team with Jack Perry or Okada or whatever? I know it's embarrassing to be on a show where there's not a lot of people, but the big problem is that, there are a lot of wrestlers who are accountable for the downfall of AEW, and Kenny Omega is one of those wrestlers. Definitely he had a very bad world title reign. He was champion for too long. He didn't really connect with an American audience. The only thing that he did well was the exploding barbed wire death match and the long-term storytelling of him and Hangman Adam Page. He helped make Adam Page a star. But otherwise, the women's division has been bullshit since it started. You have Riho, a woman that's probably around 100 pounds that looks anorexic, no disrespect, defeat Nyla Rose. And Nyla Rose is a big beast. And usually in professional wrestling, how does it go? It's the big, strong person that actually should be, champion. And that should have been how he started it. It should not have been, we're going to give it to Riho because, as Jim Cornette jokes about, that Kenny Omega has a Japanese schoolgirl fetish because he always puts his, Japanese wrestlers that you don't really know about. So, he's part of the detriment of AEW, and definitely there is a sense of, it's all hands on deck, really. And if I ran a company, I'd be like, okay, well, Kenny Omega, you've caused these problems, so you have to be part of being on the show, really, because, you are a draw. So, there is a sense of a lack of accountability. There is a sense of not understanding that, okay, part of Kenny Omega's bad choices has led to the detriment of AEW. So honestly, he should be helping to make the company a lot better, really. So, it's definitely very, very entitled. And then the other thing that I would say, and before I forget, I'm going to jump into this, is that, it also really makes the company look very bad because it's saying, okay, Tony Khan has no control over his wrestlers. So, like, for example, now Kenny Omega is going to be wrestling in Japanese promotions, and he may wrestle at Tokyo Dome or, the show that they have in January, just to kind of usurp, coming back to AEW. I mean, and I hate to say this, you look at Adam Copeland, there's reports of him helping out during hurricane efforts. So, why isn't his ass back on television? Why isn't his ass being like, I worked in WWE, I'm going to help manage some wrestlers like Daniel Garcia and help them reach the next level, really. I'm going to help, manage the show to make sure, we go in a better direction, really. He's busy, finding dead bodies during a hurricane. Well, that's commendable. It's all hands on deck right now. You look at somebody like Ricky Starks, really, who I believe the report is that he doesn't want to go back to AEW because he wants to play a villain. Why not somehow shoehorn him into the Don Callis family? Why not shoehorn him into, the Death Riders or whatever, really? You can do that because he has that potential. But also, he should say, you know what, you can shoehorn me into something, or ROH, they don't have a lot of people in ROH really that are compelling. So, maybe if you put Daniel Garcia in ROH, you're actually going to have a really good show. No, you put Ricky Starks in that, you're going to have a good show, really. What would happen if Jack Perry gets a little boring, or he's been working really hard? You say, okay, we're going to make Ricky Starks the new champion, or he's going to join the EVPs, really. There's so many things for wrestlers to do, really. Otherwise, not sitting on their asses. You kind of wonder why, you have a person like Mark Henry, who, again, if he was in Ring of Honor or if he was on Collision, he's doing nothing but sit on his ass and criticize the company. So this whole trend of like having your wrestlers, sit at home, bash Tony Khan, or say, you know what, I don't want to go back to AEW. I want to just do what I want to do. That hurts Tony Khan because it makes it look like that he can't leave the locker room. It has to be all hands on deck with this company. And also when you have wrestlers that think that they can do whatever the hell they want, or come back when they want, or talk Tony Khan and saying, it's not the right time for me to come back, and use that argument of, it's limited space, fuck that, because, it's all hands on deck, you have to be making that money. You have to be making, Tony Khan has to be making that money. AEW has to be making that money, because there will be a day where Tony is a businessman, and the smaller arenas is the next step, and that's a right step. But there will be something where if he's not making that money, what's going to happen in 5 years? He's not going to renew that contract, because you know what? He is a businessman, and you know what? He's overworked. It clearly shows on his face and with his mental health that he's overworked. And why would he? And he's not stupid. He's going to be like, okay, this is not working out. 10 years, the rest of this contract that they have, maybe it's going to be, AEW is going to be 8 to 10 years, but it's not going to run forever. And then Chad's going to be like, what, son, you tried it, you put a decade of your life in that's a hell of a long time. It's not working out, fuck everybody. And that's how it works in business. So, but also, if you have that mentality to your employees saying, okay, we're not making money, we're losing ratings, it has to be all hands on deck, really, I'm looking at these expensive contracts. So, if you choose to not come back or say you're better off in Japan or whatever, fuck you, I don't need you, So he needs to be like that with Kenny Omega. What, fuck you, I don't need you. Because as I said, what would have happened if you had, like tonight you had a television show, then you had Okada just come out and be arrogant and talk about the Continental Classic and be a dick, and then you hear and you see explosions go off and see Kenny Omega, and it's going to be Kenny Omega versus Okada at Full Gear, and then you make that match. And this is the match that you have. Just remember, they dissed Kenny Omega's diverticulitis when they started birthday cake and intestines and all that. There is a story there. You have Kenny Omega returning at Full Gear. That's going to create a lot of positivity and a lot of like hell yes type of moment. Then you actually have the Continental Classic, and then you put Kenny Omega and Okada in it, and then you have like maybe something like Ospreay walk out, or Shelton Benjamin, or a couple other people. You're gonna have Kenny Omega and a few other people, and set up the Continental Classic on Full Gear after you have a match between Okada and Omega, which will draw an audience. So he does fit, and he does fit in Full Gear. But it hurts. It really hurts the show that he's not there, and it really hurts the show even more that he has a mentality of, I don't want to be there. That's not the best time, because we all know that shows he doesn't care about the problems that he created in AEW, and that also doesn't care about the fact that for the rest of his life, that this is his company. He helped found it. And you got to be part of your show, or you got to be part of your show, or that's that, really. I understand that, it may be hypocritical, because, you look at people like Cody Rhodes, who helped founded AEW, and then he left to WWE because he wanted to be, John Cena, after John Cena, really, I don't blame him, because everybody would take that spot, really. If I was a professional wrestler and I founded AEW, and I had Ric Flair potential, and WWE calls me and said, you're gonna be the next Ric Flair, woo, and you're gonna be getting 16 titles, woo, and you're gonna be kissing girls until you make them cry, woo, and you're gonna be having these great matches at WrestleMania, woo. I would absolutely do that, but for Kenny Omega to be under contract and go to a different promotion, and I feel like that's the best way to debut or come back, really, is beyond stupid. It's beyond, selfish. It's beyond saying that, fuck, AEW doesn't matter. And it's also bad because, you have Mr. Ned Flanders himself, Tony Khan, ameliorating this. And that's not something he should ameliorate. AEW is struggling. It's all hands on deck. And if it's clear that some people don't want to be there or not really recruit themselves, fire their asses or saying, we're going to do pay cuts, or, you know what, I'm going to have to start cutting the roster. And the first people I'm going to cut are people that have not been working for so long, people who are being paid more, or they're being contracted to pay more. I'm paying them more. They're being contracted to make more money, and they're not showing up. You keep people like Daniel Garcia, who is trying to make himself a big deal. Even though he's a little awkward, he makes himself a big deal. He's going to get over one day. You bring in Jack Perry. Jack Perry has been, you set him on fire, you tied him to a car, Peter Griffin challenged him to a match. You keep people like that because it shows that they give a fuck and they're committed. You keep people, like Matt Taven and Mike Bennett, and because they give a fuck. I don't like Premier Athletes. I don't like the Iron Savages. I don't like the Dark Order, but I can respect people that are like every single show, they want to be there, even if they don't fucking matter. You look at Top Flight, those are the people that fucking matter. Private Party, those are the people that fucking matter. Everybody who wants to fucking matter, who wants to be part of this company, you keep those motherfuckers. But the people that that don't matter, don't care, or they're underutilized, you're not using them, you have to make a statement. You have to be like, okay, after the holiday season, I'm letting all these people go, and Tony has to make that choice. And it may have to be Kenny Omega, and may have to be, other wrestlers as well. If you don't want to be part of this company and you think you're better off, on other shows or in other promotions, fuck you, I don't need you. And Tony needs to embrace that, because that's a big fuck you to him, and that's a big fuck you to the fans. And also, too, it's all hands on deck. And Kenny Omega, you know what, he is a cunt for doing this, and every bad thing that Jim Cornette said about him, it's validated, because honestly, AEW struggling. He's one of the big problems of AEW because he fucked up the women's division. He had a very bad title reign. When they had that merger with TNA Wrestling, he did a very shitty job. And the only good thing he did was the Exploding Barbed Wire Death Match, which, unfortunately went from a very serious match to high comedy. But ultimately, we need Kenny Omega to come back to AEW. He needs to understand that he is a draw. There is an audience for him. It would create a lot of great publicity. He needs to be back in AEW. But what he's doing is extremely selfish. And it really hurts the company for two reasons. That, number one, it shows that he's selfish. It shows that an executive of the company doesn't care. And it also shows that Tony Khan is too big of a pussy to force him to actually work full gear and be like, motherfucker, you are a draw. You make money. We'll put you on the card, and we're going to give you a match with Okada, because that does make sense. And that's actually gonna help Okada. It's going to show him as a strong singles wrestler. That's going to help advertise the Continental Classic, because that's a match that should happen. What if you win or you lose, and then we have 12 other people run out, and they're all going to be part of the Continental Classic, and that would actually boost some television ratings. You're going to be like, okay, look at all these exciting motherfuckers release. But since you're not going to do that, it makes Tony Khan look like a bitch, and it actually makes Kenny Omega look like a bitch.